Hello
Okay.
everyone and good afternoon. Welcome to this Yashas mini series. We have completed the half century of the series, and this is our endeavor to serve the best for the women members, by the women members, and giving the opportunity to all the members, women members, to come as a speaker, moderator. And today's topic we have to begin with, we have Ankita Sethia, and she'll be taking us through the FEMA provisions and what are the opportunities in FEMA for women chartered accountants. And Neha is coordinating the session along with our other speakers, and the Dipali is our next speaker who will be taking us through the soft skills, and all other my dear moderators, Urvi, I can see, and who all others are present. Shivani is also present. Yashasri is also present. So, friends, we have also started this campus placement program. This is for flexi and part-time work, and this is for non-COP holders. And as such, our portal for part-time flexi work hours is already working. And please let us know if you need, further more support. We are always there to support. It is our endeavor to serve the best to our women fraternity. With these words, I welcome all of you, and Preeti Saula, the chairperson, Central Council member, and for you, by you, with these words, welcome all of you. And I request, I request Neha to take for the session. Yeah, if you have anything, please put in the chat box. We can discuss further and later in the deliberate further. Over.
Thank you, Preeti. Uh, Good afternoon, all. And I, CA Neha Pritmani, welcome you all to this webinar organized by the Women and Young Member Excellence Committee of ICI. The topic of today's webinar is Introduction to FEMA and various reporting compliance under FEMA. I would like to invite CA Ankita Shetia for highlighting us with various reporting compliance under FEMA. CA Ankita Shetia is a chartered accountant with over 13 plus experience in FEMA compliances, international business advisory, and cross border transactions. CA Ankita is an associate director at a leading CA firm. She advises on FDI, ODI regulations, and global entity regulations. She is also an active speaker at ICI, CTC, and FEMA study circles. Welcome, CA Ankita Shetia, for this webinar.
So before Ankita takes up the session, we would like to invite our Vice Chairman of Committee, C. Ravi Patwa. So welcome Ravi Bhai to this webinar, Yashaswini and Idol. And would like to hear from you the words of wisdom. All the participants are waiting for your words. Yes,
Thank
Ravi.
you so much, Chairperson Madam. Thanks a lot.
Yes.
Uh, you have really started a very, very good project, Yashashwini, which has crossed more than 50 now. And under your leadership, the you know Women and Young Members Excellence Committee is doing a fantabulous job. And friends, this is the 55th edition of Yashashwini, and today we will be discussing on introduction to FEMA and various reporting compliances under FEMA. And I understand that CS Ankita Sethia will be taking up the session. I convey my gratitude to Ankita ji and also to CA Dipali Onyalkar, who would be taking up money mindset mastery for women CAs. Very important topics and lively topics, I would say. FEMA definitely gives us another practice option. And those of you who are in traditional practice can always think of FEMA as an option for practice. And money mindset mastery is something which everybody wants to do. As they say, females are better finance managers than males. Uh, I would have loved to hear her, but I would have to leave because I have another meeting, which was also supposed to be from 3:30. I've held that meeting for 10 minutes just to interact with you all. And I also convey my gratitude to Urvi Asharji, to Neha Pritmani ji, to CA Yashasri Dand, and CA Shivani Udeshi for taking up the role of coordinators in this session, in this 55th Yashaswini. Thank you very much, friends. We all are eager to hear from Ankita ji. So I hand it over to the organizers now. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ravi Bhai, Vice Chairman of the committee. It is always said that a coin has two sides, and that is how the chairman and vice chairman are, and that is how we work. And because of the support of each other, and within limited time, we are able to actually pursue a lot. So thanks, Ravi Bhai, for being there, and he is also part of examination committee, executive committee, and also vice chairman of accounting standard board and internal audit board. So thank you, Ravi Bhai, for being here, part of it. So over to Ankita. Thanks.
Hello. Thank you so much, Preeti ma'am, Ravi sir, and all the moderators and panelists of this event today. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I will, just to give you a background, today we are going to discuss about the uh, basics of the FEMA regulation, and we will also touch upon few of the compliance aspects under FEMA. And if you have participants, if you have any queries, you can let me know in the comment section, and we can discuss those questions towards the end. So I will now share my presentation with you. As we all must be knowing that Foreign Exchange Management Act is a law introduced in the year of 1999, and it came into effect from June 1, 2000. And the act has replaced the erstwhile FERA, which is a Foreign Exchange Regulation Act. And the FERA law, as we all know, was more draconian, and it was very strict. FEMA has come into effect in order to simplify the foreign trade and payments and maintain a stable forex market in India. FEMA outlines the formalities and procedures, like when a person is Indian resident is doing any transactions outside India, cross border transactions, or when any foreigners are doing any transaction within the Indian borders. So in these two cases, the FEMA regulations will apply. In FEMA, broadly, there are two types of transactions. One is a capital account transaction, and another is current account transaction. So, capital account transaction would be such where the assets or liabilities of person resident in India are getting modified or are getting affected. In other words, I can say that if I have procured a property outside India, I am creating a asset outside India, and so this will be classified as a capital account transaction. If a foreigner acquires a property in India, or if a foreigner acquires shares of a company in India, so their assets are getting modified in India, and this will also be classified as a capital account transaction. So it can either be any creation of assets or creation of any liability. This will be amounting to a capital account transaction. Then there are current account transactions. So these are normal day-to-day transactions which will involve the inflow and outflow of money in terms of regular trading of goods, trading of services, any income such as dividend or any interest income on the assets, or any loan, interest on any loan. So these will classify under the current account transactions. And one golden rule which we all must remember, that all capital account transactions are prohibited under FEMA unless they are specifically permitted by way of any regulation or rules. And all the current account transactions are permitted unless they are specifically prohibited. So this is a golden rule to remember. While studying FEMA, there are so many things. So, if a newcomer does not understand, I have just made a hierarchy here. First of all, they have to study Foreign Exchange Management Act, which is a bare act of the FEMA. It's the statute. And if there are any provisions or so, FEMA Act provides the power to Indian central government to issue rules, and it provides the powers to RBI to issue the regulations. So one has to read the rules and regulations. If there are still certain clarifications required, then one can read the master direction. If the master direction is also not clear, then one can go to the master circular. Then one can read the notifications which are issued on the RBI website. Then one can go to the circulars. Then comes the press notes, and lastly one can refer to the FAQ. So one important point to note here is that whatever is clarified by way of a FAQ, it should not happen that you are straight away neglecting the provisions of the act just by interpreting FAQ for your own benefit. So FAQ need not be prevailing over the act. Now, these are certain important authorities under FEMA. Broadly, on the day-to-day basis, we must understand what is a AD bank. So, AD bank is a authorized dealer bank. It is called in the common parlance as a AD bank under the FEMA terminology. So what happens is, I am currently having, say, bank account with three banks: Axis Bank, HDFC Bank, and ICICI Bank. And I am making an investment in the company in USA in the share capital. So I am doing a ODI investment abroad. So in this case, out of the three bank accounts which I am having, I have to nominate one bank as my AD bank, and all the transactions that I am doing from India has to go through that AD bank. I cannot keep switching between the AD banks. So once I have decided that HDFC Bank is going to be my authorized dealer bank, then all the transactions which I am doing for that foreign company has to go from that same bank account in India. Also, so secondly, so AD Bank, as I have described in this presentation, that AD Bank has certain powers, and they play a key role in ensuring that the Indian residents are compliant with the foreign exchange rules and regulations. Next comes, after the AD Bank, the higher authorities, RBI. So RBI gives like directions to the AD banks to make certain rules, to make internal policies on dealing with the foreign exchange transaction. RBI has the authority to grant permission for various transactions, conduct inspection of authorized persons. So authorized person here means the banks. So RBI will conduct the inspection on the banks, that the banks are properly following the FEMA regulations. And nowadays RBI has made its stand very strict. So there are frequent audits by RBI with all the banks, and banks have become very vigilant when it comes to any type of FEMA compliance, and they don't want to take any chances, because RBI will otherwise levy hefty penalty on them. So banks also are very cautious nowadays, and they have their banks have their own internal FEMA compliance teams, which are day in day out only doing the FEMA related transactions, and they are making sure that their customers are following the FEMA rules. So this is a very good development because of the RBI's intervention. Then central government is another important body. So central government as I have already explained, that RBI issues the regulations on the FEMA transaction, and central government issues the rules to carry out the provisions of the act. And central government also issues press notes. Central government has issued consolidated FDI circular for inbound investments, and Ministry of Commerce and Industry had issued this FDI policy. Then there is a enforcement director. So when a bank comes to know about any transaction which they think is of a very high amount and is involving any false trading or any involvement of any forex, which is not so then banks will they will do is they will refer the case to enforcement director via RBI. So RBI will ultimately go to the ED in certain suspicious cases, and they will ED will then investigate the case. They will issue summons to the party involved, and they can also do any search, seizure, they can seize the property if they find any suspicious transaction involving foreign exchange transactions. So this is one another important terminology which needs to be discussed. This is a so there are three terms which are mainly discussed under FEMA. So one is NRI, which is a non-resident Indian. Then there is a PIO, person of Indian origin, and then there is a OCI, which is overseas citizen of India. So NRI is basically someone who is not residing in India but who is a citizen of India. It is just a basic. So if I today go decide that I want to move to USA and I want to do my future business operations and move to USA, I have decided. So this is my intention. So FEMA like acts on the intention. FEMA does not count the number of days that I was residing in India. If my intention today is to go and settle in USA, so if I book my ticket and go to USA tomorrow, then tomorrow onwards I will be classified as a NRI under FEMA. So this is a major difference between Income Tax Act and the FEMA Act in terms of the definition of NRI. Now there is a next is PIO, which is a person of Indian origin, and PIO actually as a concept is not in existence on today's date, but it was there in existence earlier, and PIO is now replaced by a concept of OCI. So all the people who were earlier classified as a PIO, and if they had bought any property, immovable property in India, then they can continue to hold that property. But if in today's date, if some person who was a PIO and who does not have a OCI card, so they have to compulsorily acquire a OCI, register for as a OCI card holder, and then only they can purchase a new immovable properties in India. So as PIO concept is now replaced by OCI, so all the PIOs who were there, they have to mandatorily apply for a OCI card. Key difference between the term OCI and NRI, which I want to explain, is NRI is a citizen of India. However, OCI is a person who may or may not be a citizen of India. But if suppose his spouse is a citizen of India, and if his spouse also qualifies for this, these are the conditions. So if the spouse qualifies for these conditions, then they will be classified as a OCI. So let us just study this condition. So a person who is OCI, who was a citizen of India at the time of or at any time after commencement of the constitution, that is after 26 January 1950, or who was eligible to become a citizen of India on 26 January 1950, or who belonged to a territory that became part of India after 15 August 1947, or who is a child or a grandchild or a great grandchild of such a citizen. So here, important thing to note is that only up to 2 levels we can go. So if my great granddad was a citizen of India, only then I am eligible to have a OCI card. So only up to 2 level above I can go. It has to be either a grandparent or a great grandparent. So if a person whose forefather were a citizen of India, but beyond the 3 layers, then they are not eligible to have a OCI card. Then there is a minor child of such person who is mentioned above. Then next is who is a minor child and whose both parents are citizen of India, or one of the parent is a citizen of India. Uh, and next condition is spouse of a foreign origin of a citizen of India, or spouse of foreign origin of an overseas citizen of India OCI card holder. So the marriage has to last for a continuous period of not less than 2 years for such spouse to be eligible to have a OCI card as per the Citizenship Act of India. Application for this OCI card can be done on this website. So no person who is either or whose parents or grandparents or great grandparents had been a citizen of Pakistan, Bangladesh, or such other country as the central government may by notification in the official gazette specify shall be eligible for registration as a OCI card. So citizens of these countries are not eligible for OCI card. Another important terminology which is commonly used is a LRS. So, liberalized remittance scheme is for the individuals, resident individuals of India. And what this scheme basically intends to do, as per the intention of government, that the India's US dollar reserves should be kept intact. And because of this intention of the government, there is a restriction imposed on the resident individuals that they can only send up to USD 2.5 lakh per financial year to overseas anywhere, like for any capital account or current account transaction. So what are the permissible capital account transaction? Let us see. So first is opening of a foreign currency account abroad. One can open a foreign currency account abroad with this LRS money. However, as per the recent circular, they have to keep in mind that within 180 days, if that money is kept unused in that foreign bank account, then the money has to be brought back to India. This is very important, and otherwise if RBI or government comes to know, they can impose a penalty because the amount is kept unused outside India. Second, in purpose which is allowed is the purchase of property abroad. Third is making investments abroad. So investment can be in multiple sources as explained here. Fourth is setting up of wholly owned subsidiaries or a joint venture abroad. So here, basically, intention is that if I want to do my business abroad with a foreign partner, so I will set up a joint venture company in that, say, USA, and I will that will be called as a joint venture under the FEMA Overseas Investment Regulation, and I can only invest maximum up to USD 2.5 lakh per financial year, or I can have my wholly owned subsidiary wherein entire 100% shares will be held by me. Uh, then the last one is extending loans, including loans in Indian rupees to NRI who are relatives as defined under Companies Act. So Indian person can give a loan to NRI who are residing abroad up to 2.5 lakh dollars. So the important condition here is that uh, this 2.5 lakh ka limit, this keeps changing. So as of now it is 2.5 lakh dollars per year, but government may come up with more liberalized stand in future. and acquisition of immovable property by residents in outside India is allowed, but only individual can send maximum up to 2.5 lakh. So if the property amount is of say 5 lakh dollar, then what a person can do is they can, two people of the same family can jointly buy the property abroad, and they both can remit 2.5 lakh dollar each. Recently the TCS provisions have come up, and there are certain changes from 1st April 2025. So our individual clients may be more interested to in knowing this TCS provisions. So currently, when there is any remittance for any education purpose or any loan is taken from a financial institution, as defined under section 80E3B, in such cases, whatever amount is used, there is no TCS applicability. If the Indian individual is sending any money abroad, which is for medical treatment or education, then any amount exceeding rupees 10 lakhs is applicable for 5% TCS. So what will happen in the practical scenario? Bank will ask you to, if you want to say send 15 lakh rupees today, so bank will ask you to have more 5% as a balance in your account, other than the 15 lakhs. So that amount will be collected as a TCS by the bank, and bank will report it in their system on the monthly basis, and this TCS will be reflected in the 26 AS of the individual who is sending the money abroad. And at the end of the year, when they are filing their income tax return, they can claim back the benefit of this TCS. So other than the B and C, if there is any payment of more than 10 lakh rupees, then one example which I have is for ODI investment. So if I am as an individual forming a company in USA and having a investment of sending a investment there of more than rupees 10 lakh, then 20% TCS will be applicable on my remittance. So if I am sending say 11 lakhs, I will be liable for a 20% TCS, which will be 2,20,000. And if I am sending any amount below 10 lakh rupees for this overseas investment, then there will be no applicability of TCS, because up to 10 lakhs it is currently as nil. If a person is going for any tour or travel package abroad and they are making any payment for this purpose, then up to rupees 10 lakhs, the TCS is 5%, and above that, it will be 20%. Now, let us come to the reportings under FEMA. So, there are various. So why the reportings are given by the RBI? So it is to ensure and keep a close watch on foreign exchange transactions. That's why they have introduced certain forms and reports that must be submitted through the authorized person or AD category 1 banks or authorized banks. uh, so so I have given here a table of the some of the major reportings. I have not covered all the reportings, but major reportings. So in terms of inbound, inbound is when the foreign company or a foreign individual is investing any sending any money to India. At that time, there will be FDI guidelines and FDI rules will be applicable, which are known as FEMA non-debt instrument rules. And as per those rules and the FEMA guidelines, there are certain reportings which are applicable. So first such reporting is FCGPR, and FCGPR filing is applicable when a Indian company is getting a foreign investment in the equity shares of the Indian company, and FCGPR reporting deadline is within 30 days of the allotment of shares. So this is from FCGPR. then there is a form called FCTRS. So this form is applicable in case of transfer of shares from a resident to a non-resident, or a shares are transferred from a non-resident to resident. So in this case, the due date for filing the FCTRS is within 60 days of share transfer, and next is form LLP1 and LLP2. So these two forms are basically to be filed by the Indian LLP, which has received a FDI investment, which has received a capital contribution from a foreign partner. So LLP1 is applicable when the money is received, share capital is received in the Indian LLP, and the due date for filing this LLP1 form is within 30 days of receipt of the the capital amount in the LLP. LLP2 is to be filed within 60 days from the date when the such capital was repaid back. So suppose the Indian LLP is now not in the requirement of that capital, and they are sending the money back to the foreign partner, which is a transfer, either by way of a transfer, or it is a reduction of the share capital of the Indian LLP. So in that case, form LLP2 has to be filed, and the due date for this is within 60 days of such share reduction or share transfer. Then there is form ESOP. So ESOP is to be filed when an Indian company grants ESOP to its employees residing outside India, and this form must be filed within 30 days of issuance of the ESOPs to non-resident employees or director. Next is form CN, which is a convertible note, and when an Indian company or startup is issuing any convertible notes to a non-resident individual, that time the form CN has to be filed within 30 days of such issue or transfer. There is also one more concept of form. So when a foreign company is investing in the Indian company, it is a first level subsidiary. When the first level subsidiary is forming another subsidiary, which is will be a step down subsidiary, so in such case form DI will be filed. DI is known as downstream investment, and downstream form DI has to be filed within 30 days of allotment of capital instrument to that to the first level. So second level company will issue the share capital to share certificate to the first level company, which has subscribed to the MOA of the second level company. Then there is a form called DRR. So this is applicable in case of issue or transfer of depository receipts under the depository receipt scheme, and the due date is 30 days from the close of the issue. Another is form INVI. So form INVI is to report foreign investment received by an investment vehicle such as AIF when units are issued to a foreign investor. So this form needs to be submitted within 30 days from the date of unit issue or foreign transfer. Now there is a second scenario when an Indian company or an Indian resident individual is sending the money overseas. So that time there is a requirement of filing of ODI, which are covered under the recently issued overseas investment rules and overseas investment regulations. So these rules and regulations have prescribed the conditions and the regulations, and I will discuss this part in the next slide in detail. I will cover all the aspects of outbound investments in detail in the next few slides. There is one more form which is applicable, FLA return. So FLA return is applicable both in the case of FDI and ODI, and I will cover some of the important aspects of FLA return as well in the next few slides. Then there is a reporting of loan. So when an Indian company is getting a loan from a foreign company, so the Indian company has to fall under the eligible borrowers definition as per the ECB guidelines, and lender also has to fall under the definition of eligible lender. So if both these conditions are satisfied, then the Indian company can have a loan from a foreign lender, and in such cases, form ECB has to be filed, and form ECB is filed once. Then we get the LRN number from the bank, and after that the ECB proceeds are remitted from the foreign company. And ECB2 is a monthly return under the ECB guidelines, which is like to be filed within 7 working days from the end of each month. Then there are compounding applications. So what happens is, under the say Income Tax Act or any other act, there are penalties or interest liability on the delay in reporting or non-reporting. But under FEMA, there is a specific provision given for compounding. So when a person comes to know of the non-violation which they have done under FEMA, they can go on their own moto to RBI, and they can file a compounding application, and they can regularize all the non-compliance that has happened, and they can do the compounding. So this is a facility given by RBI to all. Now coming to the basics of FEMA regulation for overseas investments. So in overseas investment, there are two terms. One is a financial commitment, which is an investment by the Indian person in the shares of a foreign company, and there is a overseas portfolio investments. So ODI and OPI, these are the two major terms, and similar to FDI and FPI, there is a same type of definition for ODI and OPI. So basically, this means that when the investment is in the unlisted company, even 1% amount will be classified as a ODI, and when the investment is in a listed company, up to 10%, it will be classified as a OPI, and if the investment goes beyond 10%, then it will be classified as a ODI. Same case happens for the FDI and FPI cases. So when a foreigner invests in the listed shares of an Indian company, say 5%, it will not be classified as a FDI. It will be called as FPI. And if a investor say invest in the 5% shares of an unlisted company in India, then it will be classified as a FDI. So this is the same concept with the ODI and FDI. There are two routes for investments in this. So under ODI, there is an automatic route and there is an approval route. So mostly ODI investments can be made without prior RBI approval, and approval routes is only when the investment is exceeding the limit which is prescribed by the RBI. So what is this limit? Let us see. So for the Indian companies, there is a limit of 400% of net worth as per its latest audited balance sheet, and this audited balance sheet should not be more than 18 months preceding the date of transaction, or USD 1 billion in a financial year, whichever is lower. So if suppose Indian company's net worth is say 1 crore rupees, they can send maximum 4 crore rupees by way of a ODI investment to their subsidiaries abroad. And this is not per subsidiary, the limit. So this is the overall limit. So if they have suppose 10 subsidiaries abroad, they cannot send in total more than 4 crores in all the 10 companies. Then there is a next limit is for the individuals. So LRS I have already explained in the previous slide that there is a limit of 2.5 lakh dollar for the resident individuals. So even if I am making an investment in a foreign subsidiary, it will be going via LRS route. However, I still have to do the ODI reporting. So Indian individual or a company both has to do the ODI reporting. And once this ODI reporting is done, RBI will issue a unique identification which is known as a UIN number. Now there is a funding. So what happens is there are certain common cases of violation in this situation. Say a person is traveling to Dubai and they just suddenly meet a consultant there and they decide to form a company there, so they will pay the fees of the consultant in the foreign currency which they are carrying with them. So they will say that you take this fees and also take this amount and invest it in the share capital of my newly formed company once it is formed. So this way, what they have done is they have given cash to that consultant abroad, and the capital amount is not going from the bank account of the resident in India, and the money is going by way of a cash. So this is not allowed. The permitted mode of investment is by a banking channel from India. So this has to be taken care. So there are certain sectors, all the sectors cannot be, ODI investment cannot be done. So certain sectors are prohibited, such as real estate activity, gambling in any form, dealing in financial product linked to Indian rupee without having specific approval of RBI. In addition to these, resident individuals are not allowed to invest in financial sectors and step down subsidiaries. So, if I have formed a subsidiary in USA, that US company cannot have a step down subsidiary in any other country or in USA. So, as an individual investor, it is not allowed to have a step down subsidiary. But if I am forming a company in India, if my Indian company is having a subsidiary abroad in USA, so then that US company can have a step down subsidiary. Company is allowed to have a step down subsidiary, but individual directly cannot have a step down subsidiary abroad. And real estate activity, there are certain debates always going on. So what happens is, if I am buying a property and if I am just directly selling it, so that will classify as a real estate activity and that is not allowed. But if I am building a township or I am having a construction of a residential or commercial premises and then I am selling it or leasing it to a third party overseas, that is allowed under the real estate business. So that way, overseas investment can be made. So Form FC, as I have already explained earlier, that when one is doing a ODI reporting, they have to compulsorily obtain a unique identification number from the RBI, and it is always advisable that when one is planning to form a company abroad, before they form a company, they should go to the AD bank in India. They should say that I want to do this company formation in so and so country, and these are some of the draft documents which are there, and they can accordingly, bank will verify all the documents and bank will provide a preliminary approval, and then one can form the company abroad. So in that case, the late submission fees of 7,500 can be avoided. However, so LSF concept, let me just explain in brief here. Suppose if a person has formed a company in year 2020 and they did not do any ODI reporting, currently it is year, we are in 2025. So what will happen is, the bank RBI will calculate a penalty of 7,500 rupees per year. So in this case, since there is a delay of 5 years, so the penalty payable amount will be 7,500 into 5. So like that, the LSF is calculated. Same is the case for LSF is applicable for ODI as well as FDI. Also, LSF is applicable in case of there is non-sub. So there are two annual compliance. One is a APR, filing of annual performance report, and one is a FLA return. So if APR and FLA are also delayed or there is a non-filing, so similar calculation of 7,500 per year and per APR form will be calculated by RBI. When doing investments, you should also keep in mind that you have to submit a evidence of investment. So if today I am making a investment in the share capital, I have to submit a share certificate to the bank or any proof of investment to the bank within 180 days from the date on which I have made the investment and I have got the UIN number. If I fail to do that, then the LSF again will be applicable, and RBI will impose this penalty, and client will have to then pay the penalty. So it is always better to do the proper compliance rather than paying the penalties. Then one important aspect which has come from year 2022 is that the audited financials are mandatory to be submitted along with the annual performance report when one has invested in a company abroad. So please make sure that you get the accounts of the company from an auditor in whichever country your subsidiary is, and then submit the same with the APR form to the bank. And even though the due date is December 31, however, for practical cases which we have seen, we generally do the filings for our clients by September or October month, because banks raise certain queries or certain changes are required in the documents, and they come up with the queries say in the November month, and we again have to revise and submit the documents in December. So if we submit the documents in December, bank will come up with a query in January or February, and then the client will be liable to pay a penalty. So to avoid that, always do the APR filing before September or October. Then there is a submission of, as I've already explained, that FLA return is applicable. So when an Indian company, LLP, or a partnership firm, when they have made any FDI or any, if they have made any ODI abroad, or if they have received any foreign investments, then they have to file a FLA return every year before July 15 on the FLAIR portal of RBI. And what will happen is, when this by the time it is June or July, the accounts of clients are not ready. So RBI has specifically given the permission that you do the filing on the basis of provisional accounts. So take the provisional accounts of the clients from the Indian company or LLP, and also take from their parent or the subsidiary company. And there are certain figures and facts which needs to be reported in this particular form. So by July 15, do the reporting on the provisional basis, and once the accounts gets audited and the numbers are finalized, then you can do the then you can do the this reporting, like revise the FLA return by the month of September or October, and that will be allowed by, so September is ideally the date to revise the FLA. So by 30 September you can revise your FLA and submit it to the RBI. There are certain cases which we have seen that the client has not filed FLA return at all from last whatever years they have the investment of FDI, or they have done any ODI, but they don't know the FLA regulation and they have not done the filings. So in that case, what happens? We have to create their account on the FLAIR portal, and then we have to there is an option on the FLAIR portal to open the previous year's FLA filing. So we have to just submit a request from that portal to RBI, and within 1 or 2 working days, RBI will give the approval for whichever years we have requested on the portal, and then the filing will be allowed for all the previous years. But of course, there will be a LSF applicability for all the years where the filing is not done. Also, one important point to keep in mind is that the whatever dues are there, such as dividend, royalty, or technical fees, they are required to be repatriated within 60 days from that foreign subsidiary. So this has to be kept in mind. And if there are any changes to the foreign company, such as the name of the company has changed, or if there is any restructuring, or if there is any merger or acquisition, or if the address is changed or the year ending has changed. So all such changes we can do by filing Form FC with the AD bank within 30 days of such change. And there is certain prohibitions, such as resident individual cannot give any loan to the subsidiary abroad. So if I have formed a company in USA and there is a requirement of a huge short term capital in that company, I cannot give any loan to the US company. But if Indian company has formed a subsidiary abroad, then Indian company can give that loan to the a foreign company. That is allowed under the FEMA, but individual cannot give a loan to a foreign company. That is not allowed. And so one more thing is that the so in resident individuals cannot provide loan to the subsidiary, or they cannot invest by way of ODI in a operating entity which is engaged in financial service activity, and any entity which has subsidiary or a step down subsidiary. Now let us come to there are last 5 minutes left, so I will just quickly summarize the filing procedure for FDI. So when an Indian company receives a FDI, in that case, they have to do the filing of Form FCGPR, and this form is quite technical. So what happens is, first we have to register the company's entity user on the forms portal, and then we have to register a business user. For by doing both these registrations, we are eligible to then do the FCGPR reporting. And one important aspect which is to be kept in mind is that for with the form FCGPR, we have to upload FIRC, Foreign Inward Remittance Certificate, and a 6-pointer KYC of the investor. So when the 6-pointer KYC, what is 6-pointer KYC? It is a SWIFT message in the form of MT-199, which is issued by a foreign investors bank to the Indian investee company's bank account. So a SWIFT message comes, and on the basis of this SWIFT message, there is a issuance of 6-pointer KYC, and this document has to be uploaded on the FCGPR form. And practically speaking, foreign banks are not aware of these regulations or MT-199. So we have to be very careful, and we have to involve the Indian banks and explain the procedures and everything to the customers banker abroad, and then comply with this requirement. And one more important aspect is that money should come by way of a foreign currency. It should not come in INR. So this also has to be kept in mind. Otherwise, the Indian bank will not be able to issue the FIRC, and without these two documents, it is impossible to get the approval on FCGPR form. So again, in FDI, there are three routes. One is a automatic route where there is no requirement of prior approval from government. Directly get the money, do the FCGPR filing, and complete your compliance. Then there is a approval route where certain prior government approval is required, and these are the prohibited sectors. So in these sectors, FDI cannot be received. And how can a foreign company enter Indian market? So there are three routes. One is they can form a LLP in India, or they can form a subsidiary company in India, which can be either wholly owned subsidiary or a joint venture, or they can just straight away work as a foreign company, but they have to register either a liaison office, branch office, or project office in India. These are some of the instruments which can be invested in India. And FCGPR, I have broadly explained you the procedure, so I am not repeating this again. You can read this presentation. However, always keep in mind that if there is a timeline of 30 days under FEMA for any filing, and if you do the filing on 29th day, and if the bank is raising query after the 30th day, then in this case you are still non-compliant. So in order to get the proper approval from the bank, always do the filing within 10 to 15 days, and then bank will raise the query on say 20th or 22nd day. Then you revise the documents and submit a revised set, and then get the approval within 30 days. So this is how practically the filings are done. So this is I am coming to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much everyone for the patient listening.
Hi, Ankita.
Yes.
Uh, so while we wait for questions from the audience, is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
please.
So earlier in the presentation, you guided us about the hierarchy of the circulars, the act, the regulations, etc. So are there any? Do we have case laws under FEMA the way we have under income tax, which are released every now and then? Or do we have any judicial precedents where practitioners or even individuals or companies can refer to?
So earlier RBI was issuing the compounding orders. They were disclosing the compounding orders on the RBI website. The entire orders were visible, like what violation is done, how RBI has compounded. But due to some cases like, so there is no judicial precedent concept in FEMA. So people used to go to RBI that in so and so compounding order you have taken this stand, so why are you not doing the same with me? So people are going there and arguing with RBI, and they don't want this, so they have stopped giving any precedents, or any compounding orders are also now not coming on the website. And so in all the cases, and the facts are treated as a separate and a new cases, and no two cases are treated similarly. So this is the reason, like, they don't want people to do it like how they argue in income tax or under other law.
Okay, okay. Very fact specific.
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. And one more thing. See, some transactions like individual transactions and individual remitting funds for, say, education for the children. These are slightly simple transactions as compared to a company forming an overseas entity. So, what would it be advisable? And in case of an individual, they approaching the AD bank directly or through a CA or practicing FEMA practitioner, what is advisable?
Yes, it is always advisable to go from a FEMA practitioner, because for clients it is a completely new law, and we have handled practical cases where client has suffered from 2 years. They are not able to do the filing, and when they come to us, and then we follow proper channel and communication with the bank, and we have completed the assignment in 2 months. So they are struggling for 2 years and they are not able to do it. So it is always advisable to go to a FEMA practitioner.
Okay, okay, okay. And one last question from my side. See, there are reporting is required at various levels, and we often see, a non-resident Indian inheriting property, an Indian property from Indian parents or grandparents. So, does that transaction of inheritance, does that require reporting, or reporting happens at the time of sale?
Yeah, yeah. So at the time of inheritance, there is no reporting requirement
Reporting.
for property.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, okay. So, Ankita, while we wait for other questions, just one moment. Okay, there's a question from Ms. Medha, and she's asking, what is the most common mistake committed by NRIs under FEMA, which can be avoided? The most common mistake committed by NRIs under FEMA.
Uh, One thing which I can say under FEMA. So under Income Tax Act, what happens is they don't file their, once they become NRI, they don't file their income tax returns in India, or they don't disclose their foreign assets, because as a NRI also you are required to file your ITR in India and do a proper disclosure of the foreign assets. So this has to be taken care. Otherwise, there will be penalties under the Income Tax Act and black money law. So this has to be taken care even by residents. So residents also who have formed a company overseas, they need to disclose the overseas company's detail under the Schedule FA of their income tax return in India. However, under FEMA, yeah, one of the most common mistake is they don't convert their Indian savings account to a NRE or NRO account. They keep it as a normal account, and this is a violation under FEMA, and this is very common.
It's very common, very common.
Yes.
The other participants can definitely share their questions in the chat box. And let me propose a formal vote of thanks to CA Ankita Shitya. Ankita, thank you for your time and efforts in giving this lucid presentation. As we all know, the subject of FEMA is complicated. It has to be observed in spirit. And you must have heard that what is not permitted directly, you cannot go through the indirect route under
Yes.
FEMA. And unfortunately, as Ms. Ankita clarified, that we do not also have many case laws and precedents to rely upon. So it is a challenging law, and we need the support of FEMA practitioners like C. Ankita Shethia. And I would like to thank her on behalf of ICI and all the participants present here, that she has given a beautiful presentation and explained in a very lucid manner. She has focused on the key points under FEMA, which are relevant from the day-to-day, in our day-to-day life. And thank you, Ankita, once again. It was nice to hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Over to the next, right? I'm sorry, over to
Sure.
Ms. Yashasri Dand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Urvi. Thank you, Ankita, for a wonderful session. So after this wonderful session on FEMA, now we move on to the second session, which is on money mindset mastery for women CAs by CA Dipali Honyalkar. To quickly introduce, CA Dipali Honyalkar is a chartered accountant with 18 years of post-qualification experience, a certified life coach and NLP coach, and an Amazon best-selling author. She is a fitness enthusiast. She has worked with leading corporates like Mahindra, Tata, Birla, and founded her own leading CA firm. Welcome, Dipali. Over to you now.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I hope my voice is clear. Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Namaste, everyone. And I'm really, really thankful to Institute for giving this opportunity to me to speak about money, which is very hot topic actually. So as my introduction is already given, I don't want to waste my time in that. But I assure this topic will be really, really interesting to you. And let me share my presentation also. Yeah. Can you see my presentation? Yeah.
Yeah, it's visible.
Yeah. So the topic is money mindset mastery for women CAs. So many people, when they call people, that person is money minded, that person is not good. Actually, it is important to be money minded. When we become money minded, then only we will be able to understand importance of money. And that's the reason, considering in the present scenario, it's very important to focus on money. And if you want to focus on money, for that, money mindset is very, very important. So what we are going to cover in today's session, what is the agenda? The agenda is why money mindset matters. Second point is building friendship with money with 7 laws of money. And I will also share certain practical daily rituals. Yeah. And if you have any questions, I will take at the end of the sessions. We will have the Q&A session for that. So with your permission, shall I start now? Yeah. So I just want to, in the beginning of this session, I want all the audience to ask, is money your friend or source of stress? I want to know that. You can write in the chat section. Is money your friend or source of stress? So for some people, money can be a friend, money can be a source of stress. I have gone through both the phases. So in this session, we will be learning how we can become how we can have a friendship with money. And for that, I will be taking certain laws also with you. So why many people, why many people struggle financially? Why? Because no subject on money is taught in India, in the schools as well. Parents also don't teach about money much. They are like, if my kid get money in at such a lower age, the kid may not have importance of the money. Teachers also don't teach this subject of money in the school. There are many subjects, like there is history, geography, maths, everything. But there is no specific topic on money, no specific subject on money. And again, there is lack of knowledge about money. Lack of knowledge in the sense, it is not like people are not able to count the money or they are not able to spend the money. But what is actually money? People lack knowledge in that. And there are certain negative beliefs also about the rich people. So we are going to cover that as well. Yeah? Okay. So before we begin in detail about the laws or how to make the friendship with money, if you have heard about income multiplier effect, you can just write in the chat section if you have heard about income multiplier effect. So what is this income multiplier effect about? So there are certain class of people who earn income by way of salary. And if you see, salary is a fixed kind of income. There are certain people who are in business as well. So they are earning income from their business. There are certain people who invest money from their business, their salary in mutual funds, in FDs, in gold. There are those kind of people as well. So what is meant by income multiplier effect? So you need to check in your case, whenever your income increases, what happens with that? Are your expenses increasing at that time, or your assets also increasing? So for you to check whether you have income multiplier effect to your income or not, you need to check whenever my income is increasing, my assets are increasing or not. In case of many people, what happens? In general, I'm talking. I hope I'm audible. What happens when their income increases, their expense increase. When their income increase, their expense start increasing. And because of that, what happens? There is no money left to invest in assets. As the expense start increasing, sometimes liabilities also increase. It is all like hand in hand it goes. Many times we take loan also. So because of that loan, the liabilities increase. So if you want to have multiplier effect to your income, like earning income from the income in hand, having multiple sources of income, for that you need to have check on your expenses. I'm not saying that you need to be miser. What you need to see, which kind of expense is important for me and which is not. And thereby focusing on creating the asset. So are you clear with this? If you want to increase, if you want to have income multiplier effect to your money, you need to focus on putting your income in right set of assets. Yeah? Like asset in the sense, like traditionally people used to invest their money in FDs. But now the trend has started changing. People are investing in mutual fund also. Why? Because mutual fund returns as compared to FD returns, there is huge gap. So people have started realizing this. So you also need to check in your case where your money is going, in your liabilities or traditional set of investments. Yeah. So let's move on to the next point, and that is building friendship with money. Do you find building friendship with money, it's tough for you? Yeah. Is it tough for you? Yeah, it's tough for many people. So now how to build friendship with money? Many people say, what is this friendship with money and all? If I go for a job, I will get the money. If I, with my skills, if I start my business, I will get the money. But you also need to check how is your relationship with money. Because how much money you have in your hand, that totally depends on how is your relationship with money. And if you want to have a good relationship with money, you need to be a friend with money. Now the question comes, how to build friendship with money? And for that, my next slides is on 7 spiritual laws of money. See, it's not like something blind belief or something like that. It's about having trust, having some sort of, what I can say, some sort of positive belief about money. So these 7 spiritual laws of money, again, I want to make one disclaimer. It is not going to happen that overnight everything is going to change in your life if you apply these laws. But there needs to be consistency. You also know consistency is the key. So if you apply these 7 spiritual laws of money consistently, definitely you are going to be friend with money, and automatically money is going to be in your hand. This I have experienced personally in my case, and that's the reason on that basis I am sharing with you. So what is the first law of money? Money loves speed. Now, what is meant by this? Money loves speed. Money loves speed means what? Money loves speed means if any idea comes in your mind, how fast you are acting on it, that really, really matters. So how speedily you are acting on a certain idea, that shows how friendly you are with money. So if you want to be friend with money, if you want to improve your relationship with money, you need to increase your speed also. Many people have very nice, wonderful ideas, but what happens? They sit on those ideas and then they keep on cribbing or blaming people, surrounding parents. But if you act speedily, the money is going to come to your ways. So universe sends ideas to us in the form of various gifts. How frequently you are watching those ideas, how frequently you are taking action on those ideas, that really, really matters. So speed should be your habit. So how you can check whether you are having good speed in your work or not? So how you'll get the money? When you work. So if you get any work related idea, you need to act upon fast. Say for example, now we in case of a practicing CS, we get different opportunities like new clients, then certain business from the existing client as well. So if any queries asked by the client, or if the client wants to give some new work to you, and at night the client calls you. So if you are ensuring that if it is possible for me at night only, I will revert, or immediately within next day, I will revert, maybe by afternoon. That will help you to earn more money. That will help you to be friend with money. So money loves speed. Remember this very well. So if you have ideas and if you are not working on that, you are not going to have money in your life. That's very, very clear. So while walking or while sitting or while just traveling, you can just think about this. Money loves speed. You can say in your mind, money loves speed. And then you can see which are those areas or which are those points in my life where I'm not taking action. So money loves speed means what? You need to be an inspired action taker to have money in your life, to have good relationship with money. Yeah. So the first law is clear with you. Yes. I hope I'm not going too fast. I want you to digest all these things. So now let's move on to the second law of money. So second law is about money loves energy. So see, now if you are interacting with someone, okay, now in the session itself, if I'm not keeping the smiley face, if I'm not having eye contact with you, and just like a robot, I am sitting and I'm just talking, I'm seeing at the wall and I'm talking, how you will feel about my energy? You will not feel like attending this session, right? So money loves energy, and how much energetic you are, you need to check in your case. Energetic in the sense having positive approach, having right mindset, having certain kind of physical activities to increase your energy. Again, money loves energy means what? How energetic you are at responding certain issues. Say for example, you lost your money. Maybe like you lost your 200 rupees or 500 rupees while traveling. So how your energy becomes at that point of time? You keep on cribbing for 2 days, 3 days, or a week, or you just see like next time I'm going to take more care so that my money is not lost. So how you think, how you see a particular problem, that also defines your energy towards money. Again, in earlier slide also I told you, money follows actions. So money tends to come to you when you put efforts and energy into your work. If your client wants the work in 2 days, and if it is feasible for you to complete that work in 2 days, and you don't pay, and you just ignore those 2 days, what is going to happen? Your client is not going to be satisfied with you, and the client will move on to another chartered accountant. So it's very, very important that how much energy you put in your work. Money remains with energetic and enthusiastic people. Like many a times it is said that many people, they become aged in their 40s only. In my case, I just want to share with you now, I'm going to client's place after starting my practice from January 2025. I'm meeting different people. I'm going to my client's place. So when they inquire about my family members and when they come to know that my child is in 9th standard, they are not able to believe that. Why? Because I have worked on that. Every day I am putting efforts for walking, running, then doing certain yoga exercise. So that's the reason I call myself as an enthusiastic person. So that way you need to increase your energy. If you just put your efforts on work and do nothing, again that will reduce your energy. Because to be energetic, to have energy within you, you need to increase your physical energy and your emotional energy as well. If you just sit with scarcity mindset, like always blaming, I don't have this, I don't have that, I put effort so much in my business, but still I'm not getting good returns. If we have such complaining energy or such complaining viewpoint, then what is going to happen? Your money energy is going to go down. So you need to see how active you are so that your money energy increases. Again, you need to put time and efforts. It's not about you need to work 15 hours, 16 hours. No, you need to put right amount of time in your work and right efforts as well. It's not about hard work. It's about smart work. How much work to delegate, how much work to keep with you. That also really, really matters. And again, to stay positive. And how you can stay positive? By giving time to your own self, by following your dedicated me time. So if you want to increase your money energy, you really, really need to give time to yourself as well. And again, learn and work smart. Use your knowledge and skills. Money helps you to achieve your goals. So many people, they are like, I'm putting so much efforts, but I'm not getting the results. If you focus on this thought only, what is going to happen? You are sending message to the universe and your brain that I am not getting results. But if you sit and if you journalize properly, why I'm not getting results, where I'm lacking, what sort of efforts I need to put, then you will get answer to it. And automatically your money energy will increase. And then you are going to be friend with money. So remember, money loves energy. You can write in the chat section, money loves energy. Yeah. So let's move on to the third law of money, and that is money loves freedom. What is meant by this money loves freedom? Money loves freedom means keeping the money in flow. Keeping the money in flow means keeping the money circulating. Like you have 10,000 rupees and you have just kept in your cupboard for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. What is going to happen? That money doesn't have flow. That money is not in circulation. That money is stuck somewhere. And this is how the money is deprived of freedom. And that's the reason money loves freedom. Put your time and skill at work. Many people ignore their skills. They just get into fear. How I will do the work. Like in my case, I worked in corporates. Now, I just want to give my example over here. I worked in corporates for 15 years. And in those 15, and since last 10 years, I was like, I should start my practice. I should start my practice, my CA practice. But I was not able to take the decision. Why? Because some sort of fear within me, which was not letting me to take the decision. Because when you are in job, you get fixed amount of income for sure at every month end. But when you are in practice, you need to put more efforts. You need to use your skills as well. So when I convinced myself that yes, as I put efforts in my 15 years corporate career, the same way I can put efforts in my practice also. There were many myths like uh, it's not possible for women to get into the practice. There are so many difficulties. But I kept all those thoughts aside and I took a bold decision in January 2025 to get into my practice. Now, why I'm sharing my journey with you? To give a live example to you, like how I was afraid of starting my own CA practice, but finally I overcame it. The same way you need to check in your case. What sort of negative beliefs you have about your career, or what sort of fears you have. You need to jot down those fears. So once you are able to work on those fears, your money energy is going to increase. Why? Because there you will start doing what you love. And that way your work will also have the freedom. And as I told you, the third law, money loves freedom. So if you want to have money in your life, you need to see whether you are making 100% use of your skills or not. Like I took break in August 22. And in that break, as in my introduction, you got to know that I'm a certified life coach. I'm certified NLP coach. I started my own programs. But while doing all those things, one thought came in my mind, whether I am deviating from my profession or not. I have put so much efforts to my degree, to my CA qualification, and am I making justice to that or not? I was into guilt trap during that time. And in January 25, I took the bold decision to get into the practice. Now here also, my income was zero when I started my practice. I already left my corporate. But when you have zero income in your hand, how your thoughts are, that also really, really matters. Whether you're thinking from scarcity or you're thinking from abundance. Like I will just give you two examples. One example is scenario. In first scenario, how I will think, because everything is new for me in practice. This practice is new for me. I don't have clients. I don't have money. Now how the things will start. There are so many people who are practicing since 20 years, 15 years, and I have just only corporate background. Now I can't do anything. Here, what is happening? Here, just see my thought process. How I'm thinking. I'm thinking from scarcity. I don't know this. I don't know that. I'm lacking something. So whenever you are thinking from lack, you are not freeing your skills. And that way you feel stuck somewhere. And whenever you feel stuck, your money is not going to come to you. Remember, money loves freedom. So how I changed my thought process from first scenario to second scenario, I started thinking like, I have corporate background of 15 years. I have worked in such big companies, big corporate houses like Tata, Birla, Mahindras. And I have my friend circle also. I have my relatives also. Let me talk to people so that I can get some work. And this is what I did. And then what? Then my thought process totally changed. And in February 2025, our CA Institute, they came up with 7 days residential program for the chartered accountants who took COP at Hyderabad. I was in dilemma whether to go for that program or not, And in those 7 days, food was also offered by Institute and residence was also offered by Institute. And I paid nominal charges 3,500. Just guess. Can anyone give you so much in just 7 days? In just 3,500. I got excellent faculty over there. We were the batch of 24 people, 24 qualified chartered accountants who started their practice. And we got excellent faculties over there. And there we were told like you need to be into networking. You just don't stick to this traditional practice. You need to see how you can have specialization in your practice. So many negative beliefs were broken in those 7 days residential program. And after that, the feeling started coming in my mind. Yes, now I can feel unstoppable. And after that, I got my first client for company formation. Then I got second client again for company formation. And at present, I have 3 clients for company formation. Why I'm sharing this with you? It all depends on how we think. In your job also, where if you keep on comparing yourself with your peers, what is going to happen? You always feel something lacking in yourself. But if you focus on your abilities, your capabilities, your skills, the things change. And that is what changed in my case. And in just after that, within a month, I got one fixed assignment also on retainership basis. That was for 60,000 per month. Then I calculated my income, and within a year, like next by next 1 year, I will be earning around 10 lakhs. See, it all depends on how we think. And it's not like, again, one more thing, as money loves freedom, if whether you are spending on yourself or not, that also really matters. Many people, especially women, what they do, they think more about others, their children, their parents, if they are married, then children and spouse as well. But many women, they get into guilt while spending on themselves. I was also into this guilt for several years. But after my break from corporates, when I started working on myself, I got out of all these things. And when I started earning again in my practice, I started spending on myself. I just made a list what I need, what are those things which I need. And I started spending on those things. It's not like lavishly, but in my budget, I started spending on it. And when you spend on yourself as per your need, the money flows to you. This is how the money loves freedom. Thanks for listening to my story as well. And you need to again move from traditional sources of investment like gold, then land, and FD. You also need to think about the mutual funds as well, where you get more return. And thereby, your income will also have the multiplier effect as well. Investing at places where you get regular flow of income. Like if you want to, if you want to invest in particular plot also, before investing in that plot, you need to check, you need to study, you need to do the research. If I invest in this plot, how much return I'm going to get in next 3 years, in next 5 years, in next 10 years. And after that, you need to invest in that. Many people, what they do, they just they don't think Bhagwan Bharose, what they do, they just invest in certain things and then they repent for it. So if you don't want to repent for your money, you just need to see where you're spending. And this is how you will be friend with money. If you remember, money loves freedom. Just think while cooking or while sitting in the garden, you just need to see money loves freedom. You just need to think about it. And where I am keeping my money stuck, you need to withdraw that, and accordingly, you need to work on it. Yeah. Let's move on to the 4th law of money. I hope you are enjoying the session and I'm not making you bored. So what is the 4th law of money? Money loves attention. See, a child, especially up to the 3 years, if you don't pay attention to that child, what happens? The child starts crying, loudly cries, then the tears also come. So same with money. You need to treat the money as your child and you need to pay attention to the money. If you see 1 rupee on your at your home on the floor, you need to give respect to that one rupee as well. It shouldn't be, अरे 1 रुपया है उसको क्या देखना है. You need to respect that rupee 1 and you need to take that money to you. Have you ever observed 500 rupees note? Now also you can do this. If you can easily access money, you just need to take out 500 rupees note. I will also take out. And just observe whose picture is there, how it looks. You can smell also that money. I will tell you why you need to do that. Yeah? Just see if you are able to do that. Just take the 500 rupees note and just see front side, back side. See, I have this 500 rupees note with me. And just see how many times 500 is written over it. How many specks are there? Where is Mahatma Gandhi's picture? it is in the, whether it is in the center or left side, right side, you just need to feel the touch of that note. You can smell also, and you can kiss also. This is how you need to pay attention to money. If you don't caress your child, what is going to happen? The child will not feel you, and thereby what is going to happen? You will not be able to have a very good bond loving bond with your child, right? The same way, if you want to have a very good bond with your money, you need to pay attention to money. Whom you are giving money, note it down. Who has taken your money? Whom you need to return to money, note it down. And it is a kind of sensitization. You need to feel this money. And that's the reason money needs attention. Giving attention to money by keeping physical note also with you. If you see the wallet, you need to check your wallet on weekly basis. Many a times what happens, instead of physical notes, many a times tickets are there, certain unwanted bills are there. You need to remove all those. What is the use of wallet? In wallet, we keep money, right? Wallets uses to keep the money. So if instead of money, if you keep all the unwanted things, what is going to happen? You are not that, what does that indicate? You are not giving attention to the money. So my dear friends, whatever unwanted things are there in your wallet, you need to remove those things. I always check my wallet. I'm not checking on weekly basis. I check on daily basis. And now there is digitization also, but I suggest you need to have physical notes in your wallet. You can have 100 rupees note, 200 rupees note, 500 rupees notes. That will, by seeing that money, what will happen? It will help you to reduce the gap in between you and the money. You can have the coins as well. You can watch the coins as well. And you should always arrange your money in a proper way. All the notes, 500 note, 200 note, 100 rupees, 50 rupees, like the way in which we keep our clothes in the almari. The same way you need to arrange your money also properly. Yeah. Then what is going to happen? Your attention will be there to the money. And engage your senses to money. This will connect with your subconscious mind as well. That's the reason I told you to touch the money, to feel the fragrance of the note, to increase your money energy. So remember, fourth law, money loves attention. Just see which are those instances where you are not giving attention to the money. See, many of you are might be well to earn and all, but still you need to check in your case where I'm lacking, where I'm not giving attention to my money. Am I spending my money lavishly, or I'm spending my money need-based as well? So if you are spending your money lavishly, many people have this show-off effect. If neighbor has spent some on something, if neighbor has taken some car, I will also take. It is imitation effect. But by getting into trap of that imitation effect, what is happening? You are not giving attention to the money, and money is going away from you. So if you want to be friend with money, if you want to have a good relationship with money, you need to see money loves attention, and you need to start giving attention to your money. Those who are not keeping their wallet properly, start doing that today itself, so that your relationship with money will definitely improve. Let's move on to the fifth point, fifth law of the money. So what is the fifth law of money? Money loves respect. See, everybody needs respect, right? The previous law was money loves attention. In case of we female also, we we do cooking, we do take care of the kids, we handle the office work as well. And in all these things, if the spouse doesn't give attention, how you will feel? You will feel rejected, right? You will feel frustrated. Same way, money will feel like that. And then what will happen? Money will not have good relationship with you. The same way, respect is also very, very important. If, like in your case, you need to check first, am I respected? You need to ask this question to yourself. As a woman, am I respected? Am I respected by my spouse? Am I respected by my parents, my in-laws, my kids? am I respected by my own self? Then only you will be able to start respecting the money. Again, respect is it is about self-respect. If you don't respect yourself, others are not going to respect you. And the same way, money is not going to respect you. So start respecting money. Never say negative things about money. Many people say, "Paisa to haath ka mal hai." Only rich people have money and they have earned money through the wrong ways. Be away from the people who say negative things about money. If you have heard about the word tathastu, whatever you say, so be it. So just check what sort of words are coming out of your tongue, what you are saying. Never say negative things about money. I don't have much money. I'm not getting any increment since last 5 years. If you say, I'm not getting any increment, the same message is going to the universe and to your brain as well. To your subconscious mind as well. In case of computer, if you have heard about the term garbage in, garbage out, the same way, what sort of thoughts you are putting in your subconscious mind, the same will start reflecting. So it's my humble request to you, never say negative things about money. And see, whenever guests come in your house, how you treat those guests? You just ignore them. You don't give respect them. You don't treat them respectfully. No, right? In our Indian culture, we give so much importance to guests. We give so much respect to the guest. Same with money. Whether you need to ask the question to yourself, whether I'm giving respect to my money or not. If no respect to money, no relationship with money, no friendship with money. So again, in turn, if you want to have friendship with money, you need to start giving respect to money. Don't say anything negative about money. Yeah, so wealthy people, if you see them, they never say negative about money. They always show gratitude for money. They always say good about money. That's the reason you also might have heard like rich becomes rich and poor becomes poor. Why? It's all about mindset. The rich people have growth mindset, and that's the reason they are like moving ahead in their success ladder. But if you see the poor people, poor people means what? The fixed mindset. You need to check in your case whether you are poor or rich. It's not about how much money you have and that will define whether you are rich or poor. It's about what kind of mindset you are carrying. If you have flexible mindset, if you have a growth mindset, that means you are rich. But if you have fixed mindset, you don't want to make any changes in your life, that means you are poor person. Just check in your case whether you are poor or rich. Never reject money. I am not money-minded person. This is a tagline of every person. I am not a money-minded person. But I am proudly saying, in my case, I am a money-minded person. Like I want to share a small story over here. I told you I got the fixed retainership by one CA firm and it got negotiated for 60,000. Then again, a thought came in my mind. I will be traveling so much all over the Mumbai. So if my first class pass and all, because I have recently started my practice, so I can't afford car everywhere. So I decided to travel by train with first class pass. So I should get the pass also from that CA firm. And I asked for it, for the pass. I was just thinking about 900 to 1200 about that pass. But finally, I got additionally 3,000. So 3,000 is also not small. So my retainership went up from 60,000 to 63,000. So here, if I have thought like how I can ask, it will not look good. They are already giving 60,000. If I would have into this thought, I would not have received 3,000 additional for the traveling. But I did, and I asked them. So this is how you need to be money-minded. And with that money mindset, you will be able to negotiate better. We women many a times fail in negotiating. In corporates also, the women staff with same qualification, everything, they get less paid as compared to the counterpart co-peer. Why? Because we don't negotiate much. We feel like कैसे पूछना है, how I will ask, it will not look good. We get into all these nonsense thoughts, all these stupid thoughts, and because of that, we are one step behind. Though we have so much potential in terms of work, in terms of skills, so you need to check in yourself. Whether you need to ask yourself, you can note down certain important points, whether I'm a good negotiator or not. If you are getting answer no, you need to see whether you treat yourself as money-minded person or not. So from today onwards, just remember in your mind, I am a money-minded person. Let the world say anything about me, but I am a money-minded person and I'm proud to be money-minded person. Just remember this. Yeah. I hope you are clear with this. Money loves respect. Let's move on to the sixth law of money. And that is money loves mission. What is this money loves mission? You need to ask to yourself, whatever I'm doing in my life, whether it is in the right direction or it is just directionless. Like job hai, I'm doing that job, business hai, I'm doing that business. But whether there is some mission to it or not, like in our institute case also, there is mission, there is vision. So everyone should have their mission and vision. Money comes to those who use it for their mission. So when you start setting your goals, you will get some idea about the mission as well. So if you want to have your mission, you need to start focusing on your goals also. What are my short-term goals? What are my long-term goals? And then what is my mission? What is my vision? And what will happen? That mission will not allow you to sleep. That mission will keep you awake 24/7. And then you will become driven. And then what? Money will start flowing to you. You will start becoming friendship. You will have friendship with money. So money loves mission. Remember this. Just check whether you have your mission or not. I also have one mission, and that is I want to have a huge recreation center where I will have all the needy person over there in Maharashtra. And I will help them to stand on their own and start earning. And once they start earning, they should return certain amount of that to me so that I can again use that money for other needy person. This is my mission. This is something big. But for this also, I need to start taking small steps. So check in your case, what is your mission? What you want to do in your life for society, for your family, for yourself. Just check that. Walt Disney wanted to earn lot of money to create such a movie which he wanted to. And finally he did that. Though he was not alive when that movie got released, but it was his mission and he just put so much efforts to achieve that mission. And that mission got accomplished also, though he was not survived at that time. Mission means how you think and expansion of earning money. Like now I'm getting 3 lakhs per month. Or if you are a starter, I'm getting 1 lakh rupees per month. You should not be settled with that 1 lakh rupees only. How this money, how fast this 1 lakh will become 1,50,000, 2 lakh rupees in next 3 months. For that, you don't have to go to your boss and just ask now, increase my salary by another 50,000 in next 3 months. No. What can be my additional sources of income? You need to think of that. Yeah. Flow of money is directly linked with mission. So if you have a mission, your money is going to increase. You are going to become friend. You are going to become friend with money. And the last point is not running behind the money. Mission works as a fuel. Many people, like if they are in corporates also, they work for 15 hours, 16 hours. That what does this indicate? I know work is also important, But many people have fear. If I don't work for 15 hours, 16 hours, if I don't do late sitting, my job, I may lose my job. My future will be in danger. No. If you, again, I'm telling you, if you work, if you think, or if you work with such something lacking, then what is going to happen? You are running behind the money. Don't run behind the money. Walk along with the money. Be friend with money. Have mission. And then what? The money is going to flow to you. And that's the reason sixth law is also very important. Money loves mission. Just check in your case whether you are mission driven or not. Or just every day you are waking and doing the work during the daytime, and at night you are sleeping. The same flow happens, and on weekends you just pass time. Just see in your case how you are using your time also. Yeah. Let's move on to the sixth law of money. Seventh law of money, that is also very interesting. And this is the last law of money. Money loves appreciation. We also love appreciation, right? But many times what happens? We expect appreciation from others. We want others to appreciate us. That is wrong. If you want others to appreciate yourself, you need to start appreciating yourself first. And when you start appreciating yourself first, then only you will be able to appreciate money. Appreciating for everything. Whatever money you have in your life, start appreciating. Giving money with gratitude for the work. Many people, what they do, especially the many women also, because especially with the sabji walas and small vendors, hawkers and all, they keep on negotiating for 2 rupees, 5 rupees, 10 rupees. What's the point? Why we should fight, or we should become upset while giving the money? We should never do that. 1 or 2 rupees here and there, it's okay, because finally it is their daily livelihood. They are not getting income like us in good amounts on monthly basis. So whenever you are giving money to someone, give with gratitude. Don't think like, I gave 2,000 rupees to this person, now my money has gone down. No. In return, you have got something. So always show gratitude while giving. And again, gratitude while taking. With gratitude, by keep on thanking that person. So whenever I am getting money from my clients, I send gratitude message to them. Of that gratitude message, one line is, I hope this money will come to you in multiple folds. Thank you for giving the money. So you always need to thank. So please start thanking yourself. Start appreciating yourself, so that you will be habitual to appreciating your money as well. Not just keep on complaining. Like, I don't have enough money, I'm not able to afford certain things. No. You need to just check. You need to check your needs with your money. How much income you have, accordingly you need to spend, and not comparing yourself with others. If you start complaining, if you start comparing yourself with others, what is going to happen? You will be in a scarcity mindset. And when you are in scarcity mindset, you will always keep on cribbing, and you will not be able to appreciate the money, and neither yourself nor the money. And that's the reason, if you want to have appreciation for money, you need to stop complaining. Arigato money. Arigato is the Japanese word. It means thanking. Thanking money. Always thanking money. When you are giving, thank you. When you are receiving, thank you. It's a medium to be at highest energy. So, as I told you, one of the laws, money loves energy, right? The same way, if you want to increase your money energy, you need to keep on thanking, showing gratitude to the money. And this is how we have completed the 7 laws of money. I hope I have some time. So let's just have a quick recap of these 7 laws, because this is very important. The first is money loves speed. The second is money loves energy. Third is money loves freedom. Fourth is money loves attention. Money loves attention. Fifth is, what is the fifth one? Money loves respect. Money loves mission, sixth one. Seventh is money loves appreciation. So if you start following these, you can take the screenshot also of these slides for your reference later on. You will see your friendship is with money is increasing and you start becoming a person with money mindset. So unless you have money mindset, you are not going to grow income in your life. So my friends, please remember that. So I want to share certain negative beliefs about the money, which many people carry at subconscious level. So certain negative beliefs like rich people are not good, rich people earn money through wrong sources. Then there are certain fear or anxiety around the opportunities. Like in my case, as I have started my practice newly, so there are many women CAs who might be new in the work. So again, there is some kind of fear or anxiety about the opportunities. Like company formation work, I never did in my corporate life, but I have done that. I called so many people for the help, and finally I could do that. So you need to check in your case if you are getting any opportunity at that point of time, whether you are becoming fearful or it's just okay. I have so many people to help me. I can handle this. Again, unworthy or don't deserve. Many people, they are like, they feel, many women especially, they are like, I'm not worthy enough, I don't deserve. So they want validation from others. When 10 people come and tell them, yes, you can do this, then they gear up. Why 10? Why do you need 10 people? You should be self-motivated. No, I know my worth. I don't need others' certification or others' validation. I deserve good things. I deserve good work. Then I need the need to be seen as a good person. Like many people, they are like, if they consider themselves as money-minded or a person with money-minded mindset, they are like, I'm not a good person. People will start hating me. No, when you have money, people start respecting you. And remember my words, when you have money, very first set of people who start respecting your family. So have money in your life so that people start respecting you. Again, weak self-control. Many people have ego also about the money. No, I can't take money. I can't ask for more money. What if I'm not able to serve well? No, be confident while negotiating. Be confident while going for any first meeting. Your confidence at that point of time matters. And I deserve. Because why I deserve? Because I will be putting so much efforts in my work. And that's the reason I deserve good amount of money. And then just ask for it. And the last point is bad money habit. And that is Parkinson's law. Bad money habit means in the very first slide, I told you about the income multiplier effect. So what is meant by this basically? How you treat your increased source of money. Like when your salary, when your annual increment happens, or when your business expands, then you get more money. How you treat that? With that increased money, if you keep on expensing, that means it is a bad money habit. I told you, you need to have the investment mindset also so that you can have more money in your life. Yeah, I hope you will start working on this. And now there is a last slide for which I will not take much time, and then we'll have a Q&A. So Delhi money friendship rituals. So what you need to do? First step, when you wake up in the morning gratitude. In your bed itself, no need to brush or no need to go to the toilet and then only to do, or after having bath only to do. No. When you are in your bed, at that point itself, just wake up. Means you need to come out of your sleep, and just for 2 minutes whispering like, I love money, I respect money, I like money, I have so much flow of money in abundance in my life, I am the abundant person, money is my friend. Just start whispering like this for 2 minutes. See, if you see how much time I am telling you to invest. 2 minutes plus 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and 30 seconds. So every day you need to spend 7 minutes, 30 seconds. The lady who is not able to spend 7 minutes, 30 seconds for herself, just see where you want to take your life. So gratitude whisper, what you need to do morning, you need to just say good things about money. Yeah. Then bless every transaction, whatever transaction you're doing, by giving physical cash or having online transaction or whatever. You need to just thank money. Thank you, arigato money. Thank you so much. And you need to say that thank you with smile. You can also keep your hand on your heart. Thank you so much, money. And the person who is giving that money, thank that person also. One more thing, thank all the people around you who are facilitating so many things to you, like the food for which you are spending, like if you need earphone, so for that you need to thank that earphone vendor. So keep on thanking people around you. Thank all the people who are making your life easy in your busy schedule, so that what is going to happen, your thinking perspective towards money is going to change, and you are going to see money in abundance in your life. And the last point, nighttime money journal. This is very, very important. When you are done with all your work, like your eating and all everything, before sleeping, you need to give 5 more minutes to yourself and start writing about money. What you are going to do with the money which you will be getting, how you're going to spend that money. Many people, they just hesitate to write about spending. You write what you're going to do with the money which you will be getting, whether you'll be having a nice tour, or you will invest in your child's education, or you will have a surprise gift to your parents. Just write everything, how you're going to spend on your money on your own as well. Whether I'm going to have a spa, or I'm going to go to the beauty parlor, what sort of changes I want to make in yourself, in myself. Write everything in detail. Make your money plan, how I'm going to spend my money and how I can earn more money also. See, during night time when you are sleeping, we have very good connect with subconscious. And when the things go in subconscious, you are done. So write at that point of time how I'm going to spend my money and how I can have additional sources of income, how I can have more clients. I want to serve people, and that's the reason I want to have more clients. And when you have more clients, you're going to have more money in your life. Yeah. So thank you so much for patient hearing. And now it's the Q&A time. So if you have any questions, you can raise your questions, and I hope I could finish on time. And last slide is thank you. Now I'm stopping my slide presentation.
The participants can post their questions in the chat box, if any. Thank you, ma'am. A heartfelt thank you to our inspiring speaker, CA Dipali Honyalkar, ma'am, for delivering an insightful and empowering session on money mindset mastery for women CAs. Your words truly resonated with us and offered a fresh perspective on financial empowerment. I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to all the participants for taking the time to join us. Thank you once again, everyone, to be a part of this experience. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. So any questions? I'm not able to see anything in chat.
There are no questions, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you once again to Preeti Savla ma'am also for giving this opportunity for this session, and to Institute as well.
Yeah, we can end the meeting. Yeah, thank you.